Welcome to the February 10th, 2020 meeting of the Yarmouth Board of Health. The first item on the agenda is public comment. If anyone would like to come forward to the mic and just present something, say something. Okay, I see there are none. Second item here on the agenda is a hearing, and it's a request for tobacco license Becker's Package Store, and they're located 55 Route 28 in West Yarmouth. If there's someone here from that store, just come up, have a seat, and just introduce yourselves, just so we can keep it in the minutes, everyone's name, that's all.
Sure. Good afternoon. My name is Attorney Tom Souza, and I'm with Mohammed Shahid. He is the owner of Becker's.
Great, okay, thank you for coming in. Mr. Murphy, you want to give us a little rundown of what are responsibilities and some background on this?
Yes.
Thank you.
Several documents for tonight's presentation are in the board's packet. In particular, both hearings are on the tobacco license request. As the board remembers, the Board of Health regulation of June 28, 2018, the board voted to have a cap on the number of tobacco licenses within town. That if a person sold or did not renew their license, that would be the cap would be reduced. It's not, the license does not come back. The license could be transferred to another location or sold to another location, but if not, the cap is reduced. The Board of Health had public hearings prior to that, so all the retailers were notified of the hearing. Also, on the licenses for last year, 19, there was a statement on the license explaining the tobacco cap that you have in your packet that was highlighted that there is a tobacco product cap, and if the license is not renewed within 30 days, the license would be reduced, and the business was signed, and that was signed by Mohammed on his license last year. So, you know, people are aware of the Board of Health regulations and the tobacco cap. The board did include a 30-day grace period within their regulation. So even though the licenses expire December 31st, the board gave everybody 30 days to have their license. Of course, in the meantime, they are open without a license if they didn't renew it by December 31st. So in this particular case, the license was not renewed within that time frame, not renewed by the end of the year, which states on their license the date of renewal that's issued, along with their application. So based on that, a letter was sent that you have it that they had lost their tobacco license, and the tobacco cap was being reduced by that number.
Okay, thank you. I'm just curious, we do have another hearing, looks like another tobacco license from Buc-ee's. I'm just curious, is anyone here to represent that store? Okay, that just may save us some time, redundancy of discussion. Okay, that's great. Anyone have any questions of Bruce? Anything, additional information that they need before we start a discussion?
Just out of curiosity, how many establishments are there with tobacco sales?
Right now is 31 in town. There should be a spreadsheet within the packet of the 31, and there are 5 in question right now. Okay. The one you have before you, 2 others at Buc-ee, and then 2 others that have closed and moved out of town.
Thank you.
This memo from Phil is dated February 4th, and as of that time, Becker's Package Store had not submitted the food and tobacco license, has it?
Correct.
Did it sometime after?
Yes, they have submitted a license for their retail food permit, which basically at Becker's is chips.
Food, just the food?
Yes. Yes, because they could not submit a license for tobacco because there's no license to renew. It had been lapsed.
So we need to hear from the owner, I guess, and then we can have a little more discussion.
Well, you know, we're not here to deny that, that the license was not applied for. It was an oversight on his part. You know, obviously, we're seeking reinstatement of the license, the increase of the cap, because as I understand it, the cap has lowered, which effectively seals him out from selling any tobacco products. And, you know, we understand the reasoning behind the cap and how that is beneficial to the state, to the public health. We understand why you did that. What we ask you to reconsider is the fact of the impact that it has on someone who is not closing, who is actively conducting business, and by reason of, in this case, oversight, in another case, it could be, I don't know, somebody may be ill and not had the chance to renew that. You're kind of cutting that business owner off at the knees. I asked Mr. Shahid what the impact, the financial impact of this is. He makes, in gross revenues each week, approximately $6,000 to $7,000 a week in tobacco sales. Excuse me. He has 2 full-time employees and a part-time employee that he just hired, and now he has to take that into consideration. A lot of those revenues went to employing these folks. And I also have to point out that the impact of losing the license, according to your regulations, he can have up to 4 violations of the law before his license is revoked. But here, but for an administrative oversight, he's losing his license, his ability to employ people, his sources of revenue for an administrative oversight, essentially. So we're asking that the board reconsider his situation, reinstate a cap that would allow him to continue selling tobacco products.
Summertime, I think it will be more, because right now is,
Pull the microphone a little closer.
summertime, I think is more because this is the winter time, it's a slow time. But I probably lost every day, a big sale. Because people buy beer, if I don't have a cigarette, so they leave it. So they said we go somewhere else. I mean, I don't know how I'm gonna alive, so, for the whole year. Because I have a huge sale. I can show you my, cigarette for a week, how much I order it. And in the meantime, I have other sales not working with them too. So because they don't buy beer, they don't buy liquor, so because of cigarette.
Mr. Shahid, I have a question. Your business, you're new at this business, almost 2 years now, though.
Yes.
Were you a businessman before?
No.
No. This is your first business?
Yes.
Who helps you with your administrative kinds of things?
My uncle is a partner with me, so he's on the other business side.
And what does he do exactly? What kind of things does he
He
do
has
to
the
help?
same kind of store.
No, I mean, but does he do things for your store?
Actually, mostly I am doing for that, all the stuff.
I think he
Splitting with me.
I think he has family that are in business in other towns, and he kind of leans on them for advice as to how to proceed. But I don't think any of them
Any of them, yes.
have a business in Yarmouth. Is that correct?
No,
Right.
any of them.
So-
I'm in the business in that.
And
You said in your letter that you learned your lesson. How are you going to keep this from happening again? What have you done to make
Usually-
sure?
Usually, I think I was, last year I had a mail came in and I sent it in. I'm not saying that, I'm admitted my fault, I know that it's my totally. But I did the liquor license out, my lottery license also too. And in the meantime, I have a family. I think I don't know how I missed it, but I usually not missed it.
How are you going to not miss it again if you were to have it reinstated?
I probably, next year, I probably try to apply for the November when they are doing, because I know that it should be, license should be on in the wall, new license should be.
I think he'd pay the next 10-year, the next fees for the next 10 years of applications and file them with the board right now if, I think he's
I'm not
learned
gonna
his
happen
lesson.
next time. No, I'm not gonna have it happen next time because
When do you
I
send
know
them,
exactly.
when do you send the renewals out?
November. This particular one went out in November 5th by email. It was not returned. They both went out by email. If we have their email accounts of the retail stores, they go out that way. It was not returned, so
I usually
they
didn't
had
get
plenty of
emails.
notice.
But I'm just saying, Linda, she sent me email. I get back to her for my liquor license, but the liquor license I came in 3 times in the town because she needs an assistant manager letter from Becker's, so I give it to her, and then I picked up the license also too, for the liquor license. But if I believe it or not, if I know if it's gonna be, even the January, I'm whole January in here. I was working full time. And even nobody notified also. And I'm just not blaming you guys. I mean, I know, but I should check it, my license myself. But it's just a mistake and also I'm the manager in the Sagamore Beach. And I never have it late any time for the license those are because I always send a mail. So sometimes I have to go down, but I've been 18 years, same business, but that's what I have happen.
So you have been a businessman before?
Well,
Not the owner. I'm just
right.
not the owner. I was in the manager.
Can I ask Bruce a question?
Yeah, of course.
Do you send out a mailed copy of an application for the licenses, or just an email and a computer?
We send it out by email if they have an emailed address. If they don't, then it's a mailed copy.
Okay,
So to try to save on postage and
Oh, I
cost,
understand
we
that.
do it that way. So
okay,
we're trying to get as much email as we can.
okay.
So they do have a current email address that they respond to.
Because I know I don't pay any attention to my email.
Most people have thousands of unread emails in their email box.
Just a second. You're not on a mic, so no one is hearing you, that's all, just to let you know that. Okay.
Well, sometimes, I think we all get inundated with emails, and if they get forwarded into a spam folder, I guess they're easy to overlook. But again, he accepts that that he should know.
Yeah, I
that-
receive a lot of emails. Yes, I'm deleting a lot of emails every day. I can tell you, if I don't delete it, I think it's gonna be emails like too much. So,
I have a hard time understanding, this cap, I think, was put in place prior to my time on the board.
Yeah.
So I spent some time reviewing this application, and it pretty clearly states the regulations as I understand it, and it's been signed. So I have a hard time understanding, if tobacco sales make up $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 a week, I have a hard time understanding how this slipped through the cracks.
even the summertime is gonna be more. I'm gonna tell you that because summertime.
I understand
So
that,
there
but
will
that's
be
my point, is
consistent.
like, if you're making thousands of dollars a week on tobacco sales, that'd be on the top of my list to make sure that this paperwork gets signed and paid and returned,
Yes.
so that this doesn't happen, because you signed this here stating that you understand, this is like a contract,
Yes.
as I understand it. I don't know if that's correct,
Yeah.
but looks like a contract to me.
This board, our focus or goal is not to put people out of business, okay? We try to encourage business. And this health department is pretty user-friendly. There's a 4-week grace period. That's 4 weeks past the deadline. And that's pretty generous also. I can tell you, this was not a scheduled meeting. This was a meeting because it was requested. So it's requested for the two, I guess these number 2 and number 3 are on the agenda. There are other things are just filled in, all right? So this is why we're here tonight. So we take it very seriously, and because it's business and it's business owners in town, and it's important to us.
That's why we hope that you'd take into consideration the fact that he's been suspended since January 31st, which was the day after the 30-day grace period. So, he's probably lost $6,000 to $7,000 already in revenue. So, I think that gets the message across to him in a way that he can understand, and I don't think it'll happen again if you choose to reinstate the cap and allow him to reapply for the license.
Certainly brings up some good discussion here tonight. There's another point of view also, selling a product without a license for 4 weeks that you benefit from, and you've lost 1 week so far of business. The math is right? That's essentially what we're
Essentially,
talking about
yes.
at this point.
Actually,
Sure.
yes.
So, board members, any more questions, thoughts about it in general? I mean, ultimately, board members, what's our goal here? What's our goal? And are we working our way towards a goal, in other words? In general, what to do about licensing, about caps, and so on. And that's a question.
Personally, I just as soon not see somebody put out of business because of this. There's enough businesses in Yarmouth that aren't functioning at the time now.
Sure.
So, I don't know if it's cost him $7,000 so far the last week. Correct? Did I have that right?
Approximately, yes.
That sounds like a $7,000 fine to me. And I've seen a lot of licenses through the state get reinstated after cancellations, driver's licenses, all those things, over a period of time. So personally, I think the $7,000 fine is adequate to get his attention, do it again, and yank it permanently. That's my own personal feeling.
Bruce, the rest of the businesses all renewed their licenses?
Yes, all 26 other businesses renewed their licenses on time.
Okay.
It's time maybe we need to think about the regulations also, just to keep that in mind as we're sitting here, how we feel about it. Here's a test case of it.
It's a significant amount of money. We certainly don't want to put a retailer out of business, but we do have a regulation, and 26 other businesses renewed on time without a problem, so. To your point, perhaps we may need to, the grace period, decide if everybody gets a pass.
Yeah, I mean, do we let everybody get by once then?
I mean, if we reinstate his license, we're setting a precedent.
Right.
What are the repercussions for selling tobacco without a license or with a quote, a suspended license.
Revoked license.
Right, good question.
They'd
Without a
be-
license.
They'd probably be fined and taken to court by the Board of Health for a violation of the regulation.
I mean, we appreciate the opportunity to appear before the board and plead our case, and if you're thinking of, do you need to make changes in the future? I mean, obviously, we appreciated that opportunity to come in and at least give our side of the story prior to your final decision. Again, we understand the cap. Somebody goes out of business, the cap, the cap lowers. That's achieving what this board wants to achieve by reducing the number of retail spots in the town. But again, the distinction is between someone that's closed or gone out of business and somebody that by oversight, by a missed email, by whatever the case may be, again, is suffering a consequence that wouldn't happen to them if they made, up to 4 violations. So, selling to minors 4 times is the price he's looking at paying right now, again, for an administrative oversight.
So what is it that happened, though? Because I feel like we still haven't gotten a handle on that. All we've heard is like administrative oversight.
Well,
You renewed it last year.
We did, yes, I did. Renew that last year, yeah. Because last year, I think I didn't miss mail, and I just sent them in, and they sent it a license, and I put it in the wall.
Right, yours was on time last year.
Didn't miss his liquor either. Didn't miss the liquor license this year either.
This year, so yes.
So, I mean, when the board held the hearings, when they were talking about the cap in 218, we invited the board invited all the retailers that were here. Many showed up for the 2 hearings. And a lot of the retailers at that time were for the cap, saying that we should have a cap in town. They understood what the board was doing. That would also prohibit other stores opening up. So they all knew about the cap, and they all thought it was a good idea to go forward with that. And we tried to make it as clear as forward that they need to pay attention to the cap, that they don't be one of the people that fall into not renewing. That's why the board put a 30-day grace period into it to try to work with the business community at that time. So I think the business community was well aware of the board's intention at that time.
the business community would very much be in favor of a cap, because if you're holding on to the cap, you're in. And it had just made that license that much more valuable to them, because now they know that, A, not only is competition being frozen out, but B, if we go to sell our business, that, we've got a very valuable commodity here. So that's one of the aspects of placing a cap. It benefits those who have it, obviously, and but.
And we have had a business sell their license when they were going out, when they were transferring.
Right.
So
It's
we have seen that. So I mean,
It's worth a lot of money.
it seems to be well aware of and within that tobacco.
Mr. Shahid, were you at any of the hearings, any of the public hearings?
I had a last, no,
You weren't at either of the ones in June
June.
About
no.
this issue.
about this
No.
issue?
No.
I mean, what we're doing hasn't worked, of having people apply on time, renew their licenses, okay? What we've done so far hasn't worked. We have 2 different stores here, 3 different stores, 3 licenses, and so if we have 30 stores, that's 10% of the businesses, I guess, are not meeting deadlines. So we haven't accomplished that, to make sure that people are selling a product with a license. So that we haven't accomplished. And maybe there's another way to look at it, of what can we do to make sure people are selling a product with a license without putting them out of business. But I mean, there are other licenses in town where people are paying daily penalties, I guess. I mean, that happens, I assume. Is that true, Bruce? If someone has some kind of violation, they sometimes pay for things every day.
Well, we've had other,
Not be our department, but other
right,
departments.
right, but just other retail permits or a motel permit that might come in a little late, they aren't fined, they just go forward because we don't have a cap on them. But usually we make sure that they're all submitted prior to their opening. But there'll be a few that are tardy that we unfortunately have to chase, and that'll be a second question for the board. Maybe there should be a late fee, because we should not have to be spending time calling and tracking down businesses to get their license in. We just don't have the time and staff for that.
What happens if somebody doesn't renew their liquor license on time?
That I don't know. I think there's either a hearing before the Board of Selectmen or the Liquor Commission, State Liquor Commission.
Do you know that? If you were late with your liquor license, what happens?
No, I don't know.
It depends if there's a cap on the liquor licenses in the town. You kind of get into the same argument, but I know in other towns, we've gone back before the selectmen, and I've represented clients before selectmen to get that reinstated.
Somehow I don't see the cap as the issue in that. In other words, you're out, okay, so there's a cap now because you don't have a license, okay. The question is whether you should be given another chance because you missed it. It's sort of how I'm looking at it. I mean, it's giving, it's almost a gift out in some ways, and that just reinstate it and leave the cap out of the picture. I mean, there are two different ways to address it, I guess. I'm thinking out loud, but I mean, obviously you can see us struggling with this.
Well, for a first-time offense, that's what we're asking you to do, is to reconsider the cap, because that's the, that's the, not the cap in whole, but the cap held by an ongoing business, a license held that counts towards the cap by an ongoing business as opposed to someone that goes out of business.
We could just ignore the fact about the cap. In other words, we have someone here tonight who missed the deadline after a month. Grace period, missed it, and what to do about that. Should there be a penalty on it versus if we were to ignore the cap? What would get someone to have their license on time? I mean, that's what we
You
need to
currently
accomplish.
don't have the product out, right?
I just removed that on the shelf.
Okay.
And
There's no
actually in the
tobacco on the
back,
shelf at
No
all?
tobaccos, yeah. No food and no tobaccos in the shelf.
I'm thinking if there's no penalty, there's no incentive to be on time. You just kind of do it when you get around to it. Nobody's going to come after you, nobody's going to care.
If you want to, from that point of view, I mean, if we're going to look at regulations, we can say it's $300 a day past December 31st. I imagine they'll be on time. And maybe we'll accomplish what we're having with 3 licenses here tonight. But we're not changing regulations tonight, but we need to act on this particular license.
If you were to do that, though, then what's the significance of the cap? I mean, doesn't that defeat the purpose of having a cap on?
It would only not allow for any more stores, is about all that would do, unless you're going to put it at a point where, hey, it's 2 weeks, it's $300 a day, and maybe, it depends how a regulation would have been rewritten if it came down to that.
Or if we wanted to give everyone a pass, like I was saying earlier. Not that we would, but in essence.
Yeah, once again, we can put that on the agenda for another meeting and
Yeah.
look at how the regulation is and do we need to change it or whatever. But I think that's not going to help us tonight. It may, in thinking-wise, but we can't change the regulations tonight, nor should we, without a discussion and certainly having the public here.
Well, the other way to look at it, too, is apparently this cap has not dissuaded people from being late getting their applications in.
Yes, yeah.
It's-
And yet you're
was your
saying
point.
it's a very expensive thing to do.
Yes.
Very expensive.
It is.
I wouldn't even think we would approve a fine that would be as high as the business value of what they're losing because they were late. I mean, it just isn't typically the way we would be doing things. So, I don't know. I mean,
If we were to reinstate it, could we set a date? Could it be February 1st or March 1st? So it isn't, does that make sense?
not immediate, you
Well,
mean?
Yeah.
I mean, you could say,
So that there is a penalty, but he's not losing it for the whole year. He'd still have it for the summer.
well, that's a good thought. I mean, basically, the store was selling a product illegally for a month,
Right.
right?
That's why
30th
we would penalize him.
started March 1st. There's a month sold for a month without a license, and now this is the other month is the penalty, which should come down to zero, essentially. It's-
That sounds fair.
That would be my vote.
Yep.
You know, obviously, none of us really want to pull somebody's license.
No,
No.
we don't. But I think there has to be some penalty.
Right,
You know,
right.
What about having the renewal notices go out by mail?
I think they'd get just as lost as they would via email. However, I do think that perhaps people should be given that choice. I'm expecting most businesses have email. And if they don't,
Right.
you would send, like you said, a printed
Right.
notice.
The town's directive is try to send as much as you can out by email to save postage.
Okay, so this is a town directive.
and certainly with email, we have all written our addresses wrong, they come back. You know,
Right.
you messed up
Right.
how you typed it in, so
Right.
that may be more reliable.
Right, but if
To
it
send
came back,
registered
if it
mail
came
would be too
back, we
expensive.
would know.
Right.
But it's also their responsibility. They have to renew their license.
Yeah, he renewed it last year. He knew.
Right.
Right.
He knew it last
It worked last year. Yep.
I think you better go fine. I think it's just gonna be expensive. I think so.
Any other thoughts? You want to make a motion, what to do?
I move that we reinstate upon his application the tobacco license for Becker's Package Store, 55 Route 28, and that as long as it is received this week, it will be reinstated effective March 1st.
Second.
Okay. Anybody?
Sounds good to me.
Okay,
I-
discussion-wise?
Yeah, under discussion, the board may want to consider that, should this be late again, it won't, you know,
Yeah.
Oh, this is it.
I think that should be clear that,
Right.
because
To add that to the
you're
motion, Mary?
setting a precedent for
Right.
other businesses in town, so if they keep
Right.
forgetting it, I think it should be clear that this is a one-time reinstatement.
Absolutely, yes.
I don't think that'll be a problem, because if we're going to rewrite the regulations, then that'll take care of that. You're
But if
absolutely
the-
right in your point.
But if the board doesn't rewrite we might not need to redo the regulations, and it's pretty clear. Obviously, 26 other people understood it.
Right.
Right, but 3 licenses did not, and we don't need to go
Well,
through this
two
again.
people.
I know that, yeah, but it could just as well. That's,
So might want to just include that in the motion, I'm thinking, or at least in the discussion, that this is a...
This,
well, you're making a motion, it depends on whether you want to change it.
putting it out, the board information.
well, I mean, I'm willing to amend it and say this is a one and only.
Yeah.
Yeah, the issue I have, this is the discussion period, is that that the other 26 stores can do the same thing, that's all.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
what we need to avoid that happening. It's
Right,
it's-
so we do need to bring this back for some more discussion, and
Thank
yes,
you.
I agree, absolutely.
Without voting on the first amendment, rather on the first motion, I'm okay if we customize it and only have to vote once. You all right with that?
That's fine, yeah.
We tend to do that. So we customize it with a sentence about,
Okay. I move that we reinstate Becker's Package Store, 55 Route 28 tobacco license, as long as the application is received this week, and that it will be effective March 1st, and that this is the only instance that we will consider an exception to our regulation.
Still seconded.
Still second? Any further discussion? Anyone? See there none? All in favor of the motion, just raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
All right.
So, sir, you understand what we're doing?
Yes.
So my advice would be to get it in here,
This week.
okay, tomorrow morning maybe?
Yes.
Don't do it again.
Yes.
Yeah, don't do it again.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Just keep on going.
Okay. Third item here. This is a hearing, once again, a request for tobacco license at Bucky's number 1. It says 528 Buck Island Road, West Yarmouth. Once again, Director Murphy, anything else you'd like to add?
No, it's the same facts for both cases. And Bucky owns 2 stores, Bucky 1's on Buck Island Road and Bucky's 2 next to the South Yarmouth Post Office, so you could probably combine them
Combine them,
together.
everyone okay if we just combine
Yes.
3 and 4 on the agenda? That's fine. Anyone here from that store? Great. Just come on up, have a seat, and just for the record, just provide us with your names, that's all.
Good evening, gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen. My name is Aleem Khurram, and I own both Bucky's. One is a 528 Buck Island Road, another one is 1047 Route 28. In my short briefing, because you guys already know, because I just heard you guys discuss that, because I'm 28 years in the business in Yarmouth. I was out of country because, first of all, I do apologize. I missed that deadline, which was December 31st, I believe, yeah. The problem is I'm from the old school and I don't check my emails. And we used to get applications by mail, and when it's come, doesn't matter, it's come on November or December, we used to fill it up and send to the town hall. I used to bring by myself. But now as an email process, and sometime I was checking my all emails while I was out of country, and I did not see any emails. And I'm not making that excuse because I did not see the emails. Maybe I missed that, maybe it went to the junk box, I have no idea. And I speak to Mr. Murphy, then the incident happened, that was last week. And I tried to talk to him, I sent my manager, and she's Rebecca, also worked for me almost 4 years. And we are pretty responsible people. And the thing has happened, and we already discussed that. I'm not talking over here about the cap or something like that, because I'm just worried about my license. And 2 locations, the gentleman before me, they was talking about 5,000 a week, so I have a 2 location. And that's why we are here today. And Mr. Murphy know about my stores, and we never did any violations. And stores are clean, and I have 4 employees. And we're not trying to do anything against our town's regulations. So mistake is a mistake, and I'm not going to talk about that, because if town can call me because I lose my license and they're calling me on my cell phone, I just have one question. Because when the application is not received, because as being a part of the community of Yarmouth, why they don't call me and ask me, hey, your license is expired, where you are, and just fill up the application? Maybe it's not a town responsibility, it's my responsibility. It's just a suggestion what I'm said. Because checking the email, and I'm sorry because I'm from the old school, I'm not checking my email all the time, because especially if I'm overseas, out of the country, and you guys know that what I'm talking about. Because if I have a piece of paper in front of me, and I know my responsibility, because I'm supposed to do that, and I'm doing that for 28 years. That's all I want to say. And I really appreciate if you guys gonna reinstate my license, because I already lost a lot of money.
My gut reaction to what you just said is you expect this town to call all the store owners in town who may need a license to remind them? You only have 2 licenses or 2 businesses. This small group of offices here would have hundreds of people to contact. I don't think that's
No, Mr.
very
Chairman, I
realistic.
did not say that because that's a town responsibility. I just mean to say that it's my responsibility, but I was not checking because I was so used to gonna get the renewal application in the mail. I already missed that because it's my lack of responsibility, because I was out of country. And my help, because now if they're sending me email, and I missed that. So that's all I want to say. I'm not making a complaint about the town or the health department, because I'm just saying that because from the old school, I used to do that from 27 or maybe 26 years, because we're getting the renewal application in the mail, because I'm so used to. Now, all of a sudden, it's an email thing, and that's why I missed that.
Okay, I maybe misunderstood you. I thought you'd expect the town would contact
No,
you.
I'm not expecting. Town doing already enough, and I know it's a short staff here, and part of the business community in Yarmouth, because it's not easy to gonna handle everything, because town have a little less staff, and I understand that thing.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
When did you start sending them email? Was it this year or
No, it's been a couple of years. It's kind of working its way in there as much as we can do the work by email as we can.
Right, so this wasn't the first year he had received an email notice about his application?
I believe so, correct.
Ms. Turner, do you have access to the store's email account?
I do not.
May I ask Director Murphy a question? In the previous years, have these stores ever been late with their licenses when we mailed out notifications?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the email
Consistently.
doesn't necessarily make a
Right.
difference?
I mean, we've sent mail out to various businesses in town. They say they don't get their mail. Not this particular one right here, but we get the same thing, whether I don't get my email, I don't get my mail, and we know we mail it to them. So, but this particular one, you do have in your packet here that you have been late getting your your license into us the past several years. You have not come in by the required, before December 31st. You've been late the last 4 years in a row.
No, Mr. Murphy, last year I did not get the email either, and I came to your office and I asked the lady over there, and she printed for me and she gave it to me, and then I filled it up right away.
In our packet here, I can just tell you, you were late in 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, you were late. 2019, it was submitted on time, it was December 27th. So it's 5 out of the last 6 years you've been late, okay, just for the record.
And there have been violations in your stores.
Yeah, we do have one violation. That was not a selling tobacco, but it was just something on the shelf which one we're not supposed to carry.
You had 2 tobacco violations at Bucky's 1 and 2 at Bucky's 2.
I didn't know about the Bucky's too, but I do remember for Bucky ones, yeah.
Ms. Turner, are you manager at both Bucky's?
No, the Buck Island Road store.
That's Bucky's
Is that Bucky 1?
That's
Yeah,
correct.
that's considered as a Bucky one.
So what we're doing isn't working, I guess, again.
So what would you do to make sure you got your application in on time? I mean, what could possibly happen that you would do that? If you're out of town, no one else has access to your email, you're not getting your email, or you're not looking at it, or you're not paying attention to it. I mean, what's happening here?
After this happened this year, because probably this is the first time, because you guys saying because I was already late. So I probably going to print out all application in advance. I'm going to come over here to the town hall and going to submit those applications before the deadline.
What if you're out of town?
Then somebody else, my manager,
I
can do that.
It doesn't look like the date ever changes, right?
No, it
I mean,
doesn't.
it's
Yeah, I was-
First to the 31st, so
Right.
it should probably.
Yeah, all the
be something
licenses
on the calendar.
expire December 31st. So I mean, if you know you're going out of the country, this goes back to November, but you know you have to renew your license by December 31st.
No, that's what I'm saying, we guys should do, because I already got the punishment, and I should be responsible. Next year, I'm gonna do before the time. That's why even if I go somewhere, I'm not gonna have a problem.
Bruce,
Well-
how soon, pardon me, how soon can they renew their license for the next year? Do they have to wait for the application to come via email?
Well, it's usually right around the mid-November because we have to make the applications
Oh, I
up for the next
understand.
year. So it's usually, mid-November.
And they could send it right back then.
Yes, or they could just walk in and do it,
Sure.
or come in and get it.
Sure.
So they basically have from mid-November through the end of the grace period, the end of January, to renew.
Well, they should.
Technically, I mean,
Yes.
we want them to renew by the
Yes.
31st. but
Without being
we're saying-
open without a permit.
Right.
Correct. So they almost have 5-6 weeks to renew their license prior to the end of the year.
Right, because there's been no penalty for being
Late.
open
Correct.
Oh,
without
open,
your
right.
license and
Correct.
selling.
I think it's hard for all of us to understand, if your business is as successful as the previous one, that gentleman's making $7,000, or losing $7,000, well, making it, a week. Let's say your business is as successful, it's $14,000 that you're losing a week.
Mr. Chairman, first of all, that 5,000 or whatever the gentleman was
Right.
talking over here, 7,000, that's probably he's talking about the gross sale, not a profit.
Right.
Because I'm talking about like right now, because after the suspension of tobacco license, my daily sales for the register, not including the lottery, is $150 a day. So I don't know how they're talking about 7,000. That's probably the total sale with the liquor, with the lottery. I don't have that kind of volume because after, I think it's almost like it's 8 days now, we have a suspension and we're not selling any tobacco. We covered everything. Maybe the health department already checked it. So my sale is with the grocery or candy is $150 a day. And I can even barely can afford to gonna pay my help. I don't know what the gentleman was here before me, what is the $7,000? I have no idea, because I don't have that sales volume.
So you're saying with tobacco sales, it's $150 a week?
No,
or
not with
$150?
tobacco sales.
Correct. So I think the $7,000 that the other gentleman was estimating was with tobacco sales.
And it was gross. He
And it was
made that
gross,
clear.
But our sales with the tobacco, because average a day is not more than $500.
But irregardless, I think the point being made is that if it's such a sufficient amount of your profit for the stores, you would think you'd pay more attention to this license.
Yeah.
I believe is the point that was being made.
Right, thank you. What's the license, $100, 100, how much is it?
130, I think?
What is it these days?
Paid
Do you know?
$260 for both last year.
How much?
$260?
$260.
For both.
I think
was
for
the
both.
It's 130
Yeah.
license.
130 license.
It's obviously not the money that's getting in the way of you paying on time, renewing. It's certainly not that.
Well, it's not
the
that
email.
important, obviously, then.
I don't understand why the date doesn't just live on the calendar. I mean, the term doesn't change. It's year to year, it's the 1st to the 31st.
And
So you know every year it's due come November.
And cell phones have alerts that you can put on them, and calendars, and
I mean, we
Liquor
all
and
lose
food, same
emails
period
and
of
things
time?
like that.
So
I-
liquor and food all have to renew the same time tobacco does?
Correct. He doesn't have liquor at his stores.
no.
Gotcha.
You can understand why we're not optimistic. That's all, just based upon a track record, that's all. I can speak for myself, but
Right.
once again, being redundant, that what we're doing isn't working about making sure you have a license in order to sell product. Some more discussion? So, anybody?
I'm where I was with the last gentleman.
Or,
Same.
I feel generally the same way, trying to, that we're treating, everyone the same. I think that's an appropriate way to go in general. For me, it's a little frustrating, and it's that the track record is very different. The previous gentleman was a new owner.
Right, well, yeah.
And you've said you've been here a long time.
28 years.
So.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, can you speak into your microphone a little closer, please?
Yeah, sorry.
Well, at least you didn't bang on the wall.
Trying to interpret the Morse code.
He used to do that.
So who is responsible for making certain that you have all of the licenses,
I'm
other
responsible.
paperwork in order?
Yes.
You are.
Yes.
On a personal note, what I do is when I get the application for the transfer station here, I mail it in that day. I don't put it down, I put the check in and send it back to town, so I don't have to worry about it. If I think about it, it's done. Even though I have it 3 months in advance, who cares? I'm going to pay for it at some point. That's what I do, make sure I don't miss it.
No, Mr. Chairman, I'm not here to gonna argue, because yes, for the transfer station or any application, if you guys over there, like for example, for the state license, because that's like every 2 years. So if we don't have it, that is not on time, the gentleman from the state, and they said, oh, your license is expired, go ahead and renew it. By the way, you have a check right now, we can do it right now. Because we are business people, and we try to understand, I'm trying to obligate my responsibility, but sometimes you forgot. Because I did not do it in 28 years. Maybe I was late for a couple times, but it's not that mean because I'm not going to have a license. How I can run a business without license? Because we are people, we are human beings. I apologize because I forgot. But that's going to be a severe punishment because I already lost a lot of money. And $150 a day for both locations, I can't even afford to pay my help. So even the state allow us to do that. Okay, do it right now. And we give them a check and we are in the business, because I'm not saying that I do that on purpose, because sometimes you make mistake, which one is not allowed from any town. Town is a town, I'm talking about the state, because they allow us to do that, because if somebody sometime forgot something. Even the state lottery, they do the same thing, because we don't ask them, we do not submit any application for renewing the lottery license, because they come and they give the license to us. Because everything is online, because they keep checking, because do we pay our taxes, everything is okay. So that's the way it happened, because town is a little different from the state, and I understand that.
Yeah.
And especially 28 years, it's not like I'm talking about 1 or 2 years, it's 28 years. And I'm running a business in this town, and everybody know that, and I apologize if something happened to me, and I appreciate if you guys gonna reinstate it, and what else I can say?
You're
It's my mistake, and I said it, I was out of country, I forgot. Yeah.